I started this journey like many others. Perhaps you caught Cowboy Bebop during late night showings on Adult Swim, or maybe you knew a friend of a friend who had burned copies. Or did the journey truly start the day you heard a kid in a playground talk about a brand new show airing in Japan? This was still during the infancy of the internet or even reliable search engines, so information was largely relegated to word of mouth. Or maybe you've only just recently been exposed to its charm. Regardless of how it started, it's brought you here, to a show equal parts cool and self-reflective, fun and blue. A jazz number riddled with the intricacies of human contradictions. So it was probably always a matter of time, given current trends, that it would be remade. And so we have the live-action adaptation, which in my honest opinion I found enjoyable, minus some gripes I have regarding the season finale, which I must admit could stem from biases I inherently possess being a fan of the original material. But this isn't strictly a review, no, rather an analytical dive if you will, which by the way will be spoiler-free. And the origins of this conversation stem from something I noticed while venturing through the new adaptation, and I'm sure many of you did as well. It's that even though we're going down the same tracks and hitting all the major plot points as the original anime, its core message takes a detour. Just like this message from your local Alpaca Thunder chapter. Are you experiencing the winter blues? Jealous of your southern hemisphere counterparts? Well, fear not. Recent revolutionary scientific studies carried out by the Camelus Association of Thundering Alpacas have resulted in breakthroughs in our understanding of happiness algorithmic equations. What in the llama pacos is that? Hasha! Luckily for you, all you need to do is click on that subscribe button and you too will feel invigorated by the power of ATP. Alpaca Thunder Productions. Feel the difference. This message has been approved for safe consumption by the Syndicate of Laughing Llamas. First, as I stated in this video, adaptations by definition require creative variations. A straight like-for-like adaptation would be pointless for both the creative staff and the audience. So with that said, what does the live action change? Well, interestingly enough, each live-action episode is a combination of multiple different events and episodes from its animated counterpart, and I feel this was done in order to create a more cohesive and safe narrative that provides the viewer with a clear path or objective. We must also note that the live-action affair consists of only 10, 45-ish minute long episodes. Meanwhile, the original clocks in at 26 sessions, each of which are 24 minutes long. And while you may think that the math doesn't add up, if you've seen the original show, you quickly realize that the live-action does two things.
Emergency pilot program engaged.
1. It adds a certain plotline that was not present in the original anime, and 2, it provides more character development, thus padding up the runtime between all the original plot events. Now this leads me back to my previous comment stating that the live action has a safe narrative. But to fully get a grasp of this, you first must understand what the original Cowboy Bebop was all about. The crew of the Bebop is a band of misfits who by the start of the show have already experienced some sort of life-defining event. We for the most part only get a glimpse of this past, and when an episode does choose to explore it further, it typically concludes on a bluesy note. That is, it doesn't matter. It's fruitless to cling on to a ghost. This message is fortified by the creative choice to never revisit any of the episode-specific supporting cast, barring this trio who are there for comedic effect and a couple other instances required for plot purposes. How a typical episode is structured is that our crew will be given an objective, usually in the form of a bounty, but crucially, this objective is merely a MacGuffin, an excuse to have our leading cast hop on adventures that in one way or another challenge their inner psyche. This is accomplished either through moments of self-reflection, their interactions with one another, or through those they meet along the way. The latter of which often accentuates the gray areas of morality while also removing any notions that tragedy is simply a monopoly for those who hold leading roles. In short, tragedy does not stop the world from spinning, and just like the crew of the Bebop will simply walk away from these events, never to mention them again in future episodes, the same could be said in reverse. And this, as I often say, is the key. It's a reflection of what life is. Our world will present us with experiences that we will shoulder. Tragic as some may be, like drinking expired milk, we nevertheless try to carry on that weight. So if the majority of the plot events are MacGuffins, and their final outcomes are not unique among the vast experiences of humanity, then where are the meat and potatoes of our show?
No, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that we brought her out there. But that is how this peculiar case ended. Maeve went back home to Mars. Our no-smoking area became a smoking zone again. And life returned to the same daily routine just like before. One thing has changed, though. When I read the news, I never check the horoscopes anymore.
So profound, right? And this is best exemplified in the way Shinichiro Watanabe, the creator of the show, allowed his characters to simply exist in the world and amongst each other's company, whether they like to admit they enjoyed it or not. And this theme is embedded through the entirety of the show, along with one other, human connections. In the world of Bebop, humanity has largely abandoned Earth due to an event coined the Astral Gate Incident, and this 2021 catastrophe forced the remnants of humanity to disperse out into the solar system in search of new homes. And this feeling of aimlessness, of floating among the cosmos in search of connections, is ingrained in all the stories we see throughout the show, particularly within our leading cast, who each in their own way suffer from this sense of nothingness. So much so that they don't know what they have in front of them. So if we now take a swing back to look at the live-action version, the differences are quite evident. Although it contains the same plot points and themes, the message is altered due to the way the narrative treats it. For example, in the live action, the crew of the Bebop are, much like in the original, still clinging on to the weight of their past. But by giving them additional character development and tying their evolutions more closely to the major plot events, they inadvertently lose what made the original special. Because remember, it's not about the finish line, but about the journey. And in undermining this idea, the characters instead behave more akin to your typical mainstream affair. But to be fair, there's nothing wrong with this, and I completely understand why they would take this route. I mean, it's a Netflix original that's attempting to hit it off with a wider audience, but it would be remiss of me to not highlight all the positives that the live-action adaptation has. For one, I do enjoy the extra interactions between the crew of the Bebop. It adds a layer of connection that provides a whole new avenue of possibilities, particularly for fans of the original work. They exist beyond being silhouettes of their animated counterparts and instead invoke an alternate universe feel. 2. While we're on the topic of characters, I find this version of Faye to be a refreshing reimagining of the original. She emits a different sort of charm, and one that is frankly a bit more modernized. 3. It's funny when it wants to be and heartfelt when required, so I mean, checks all the boxes there. And 4. While it's laden with Easter eggs, it rarely felt like it was merely a vehicle for nostalgia. I, for the most part, enjoyed seeing them pop up. It did have some stumbles along the way in this regard, but I can think of far more egregious culprits of this folly in recent times. The negatives, in my opinion, are mostly relegated to the expansion of the plot, or the addition of a certain plot line to be exact. The show functions best when the crew of the Bebop is allowed to simply exist. Their interactions with one another and those they meet along the way is what brings the fun, what makes us jive, what makes us cry. This self-reflection of my own journey with Cowboy Bebop has somehow become both an analysis, identifying the differences between the two, and a review of sorts. And I found it hard to detach these or isolate them from one another because, well, they are so intricately bound by my own experiences watching the show back in my adolescence and then revisiting it as an older and, well, more cynical individual. And if there's anything I'd hope to accomplish with this video, is that maybe now you'll give the original anime a chance. To leave you with the final thoughts, or better yet, an experiment, haha. If you want an idea of how different the two are, then I recommend you watch episode 20, Period Le Fou? Yeah, whatever. It's a fantastic standalone episode from the original show, and one with no relevance to the main story arc, so you can watch it out of order should you wish. And compare that to the live action version, which is found in episode 8, Sad Clown A Go-Go. What a name. But beware, you cannot watch this one out of order as there are story elements everywhere. Once you've seen both, we'll be on the same page. Yeah. And so we end our show. Let's chill and go with the flow. We're jiving up to new heights. Don't you know that it's really cool to like and subscribe to Alpaca Thunder Productions? I say alright. The doctor prescribes. What are you guys working on next? Yeah, we wanna know. Okay. Just a sneak peek for you cool cats to stick out to the end. Hey Juan, my boy.
Sì?
Hit it.
Presto!
ここは我らの森。その人間よこせ。人間よこしてさっさと行け。失せろ。